Darlene gets promoted, Ben starts a podcast, and Jackie gets wacky on some magic tea. Let's talk the Connors. Hey everybody, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It, and we're going to talk about the Connors, along with my special guest, Snowball, over there on his box. I don't put him there as part of the show, but I'm also not going to move him. He loves that box, so if he's there when I start recording, then he's there. But anyway, this is my Connors wrap-up for episode 9 now of Season 3. It is called Promotions, Podcasts, and Magic Tea, and it does pretty much sum up what is happening in this episode. Before we get started, if you're new to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button below. I'd love to have you as a regular viewer, and as well, if you hit that little bell next to the subscribe button, you can check out whenever I get new videos up. And not only do I talk about the Connors on my channel, but really all things TV and movies and some food reviews on occasion as well. Always fun. But let's talk about the Connors. We had a really strong episode last week, I felt. And I think this one may have continued in that tradition. First off, this is the first episode probably in the whole season where we have almost everybody that's a part of this show in the episode. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Mark. I always love a good Mark episode, but he was absent from this one. But we did actually see DJ and Mary for once, which I'll get into. We saw Katie Seagal reprising her role, of course, as Louise, and even her brother, who is played by, what is his name? Nat Faxon, who plays Neville, the brother and sort of love interest with Jackie. And we even got to see Alexandra Billings as Robin, the boss at Wellman Plastic. So almost everybody that's really been a part of this show at all this season was appearing in this episode, and it was pretty cool to see. So let's talk about, I guess we'll go in order of what happens in the episode title. So the promotion, which actually does kind of go hand in hand with the podcast idea, but Darlene has sort of been angling for a promotion for a few episodes now, and we haven't had a Wellman's Plastic episode really in a few weeks, but in the fall, when we sort of left things before the holiday break, she was getting in good with Robin, the supervisor, and hoping for a promotion of some sorts, while Becky, in the meantime, became the union head based on a protest that was going on right before, I think it was the episode right before the holiday break. So that now is giving us a whole new set of story elements, because Darlene is now technically going to be Becky's boss. She has worked her way up to replace one of the outgoing supervisors, and Becky, as the union boss, basically lays out in a humorous way that, yeah, you're my boss, but also, one step up or one slip up from you, and we'll close down, the whole factory. So it's, going to be, I think, hopefully anyway, throughout maybe the remainder of this season, a little bit of a battle of wills between the two of them that I think should lend itself to some interesting comedy, because I didn't love everything they were doing with the Darlene promotion idea in the fall, because Becky was, I think, being a little bratty with trying to get away with calling her kid all the time. But, luckily, I think this sort of dynamic with her being the head of the union is going to be, even stronger for the storyline. But as a result of Darlene moving up and, getting a little bit of a pay increase that they can use towards bills, Ben sort of is hitting a wall with work because, his magazine wasn't working out, so they folded that. And so he's been delivering groceries as part of, I forget, I think it's a made up name, but they said like sort of the company that he's working for, but it's essentially some sort of, grocery delivery service, like I guess Uber Eats, but for a grocery store instead of a, fast food thing or whatever. But regardless, he hates it. He was talking about it early in the episode, how he's really, getting sick of the customers, and, he keeps messing up people's orders and this and that. So this news of Darlene's promotion, which they go celebrate at the local restaurant that Louise owns, hit Ben real hard, and he decides, you know what, I'm going to start this podcast and going to make it about the two things people love the most in podcasting, which is true crime and food. So he wants to sort of combine those two items into one podcast, which, Darlene seems okay with at first, although she's a little taken aback that he spent $400 on the equipment to do it. But then we find out that he, in fact, has quit his job completely to focus on this podcast. So there's sort of a tense moment or two with them. She talks to Robin at work about it, and Robin says, look, you got to just let him do what he's going to do. Men often feel threatened by, powerful women, and if they have a mate that is making more money than them or more successful than them, that can get a little bit tricky. She tells a couple of jokes about her ex-husbands, and Darlene comes back to Ben and says, look, I love you, good job on the podcast, but I'm not going to do what Robin said. I can't really support this without knowing that, you're bringing in some money, because we're struggling here. And, look, it's true. I mean, especially, this show takes place in the real world. COVID is a real thing. Struggling to pay bills is a real thing, and really has been on Roseanne since its inception. But here, I think Ben really does have to kind of contribute. Look, I love doing my videos on YouTube. I really do. It gives me a lot of joy, and I love interacting with you guys on the comments and all of that. But if I were to, go full force with this and try to make it a career, look, that's just not going to happen for me. One out of every probably, I don't know, 2 million people that have YouTube channels are some sort of, big success. So it's never going to be enough to make ends meet. I don't even monetize my channel, which is why you never see ads at the beginning of my videos. I do this for fun, not for money. So, look, I completely understand Ben's desire to want to do this sort of thing. He is a storyteller, like he said in the episode. He had the magazine that he was very proud of, and he has now nothing to really be proud of, to really focus on. And look, I get it. It's fine, but we all have to work as well, and we don't always love what we do. I certainly have been blessed, I think, with some of my jobs. I was lucky enough to work in radio for a long time, and I love working at the movie theater, which is currently closed, of course. But I've been blessed to have mostly jobs that I've enjoyed. But at the same time, I also have to pay my bills, and I couldn't just up and quit that. So I certainly understand where both of them are coming from. His need to do something that makes him feel good about himself, feel like he's contributing. That's great. But in this time right now, he needs to also contribute money, which he's unable to do quite yet. So we'll see where that goes, if that becomes a more permanent fixture in the series. I'm not sure. One thing that did sort of bother me about the realism of the episode was that he just was doing the podcast at the kitchen table of the Connor house. Listen, way too many people live in that house. I can tell you that right now. I am only one of 3 people that live in my house, and it is not always easy to, get a quiet place and make sure the dogs aren't barking, and make sure my cats aren't running all over the place. And, so I get it. You want to surround us in the living room because that's a main focal point of the series. But as somebody who regularly makes videos and such, it's not always easy to find that quiet space and to not have any sort of studio just to set him up in the kitchen. It seemed a little unrealistic, but I get it. For plot's sake, you have to do it. But I think he could have been up in the bedroom instead or something. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's not really going to affect my grade of the episode, but as somebody who does that sort of thing often, it did ring untrue to me. But I do love that Darlene is getting the promotion. Happy to see where that takes us story-wise. Now let's move on to the magic tea part of the episode title. This is with Jackie, and at the very beginning of the episode, everybody is playing poker, all the adults pretty much. Well, I guess that's not true because Darlene and Becky aren't playing, but Louise, Dan, Jackie, and Neville and DJ are all playing. Actually, Becky might have been playing now that I think about it, but either way. Point is, they start talking about, Louise's cocaine addiction back in the day when she was on the road all the time, and sort of joking because Mary was in the room that it was grape juice or grape soda that they were talking about. So there were some humorous lines with that. And then once she left the room, Jackie was like, okay, now that we don't have to, talk about grape soda anymore, what else did you do, Louise? Tell us. So she talks about this magic tea that she had a shaman, sort of procure for her and guide her along to open her mind up to some things. And so even though she recommends against doing that, Neville sort of instigates Jackie's interest because he talks about how some vets will do that to, use on old, chimpanzees and such to sort of make them feel better about their lives and this and that and the other thing. And Jackie, of course, equates this to herself and her pathetic life. So her and Neville decide to go ahead and do some of this magic tea, drink some, and see what happens. So they both end up basically tripping. They're on, some hallucinogenic stuff, and for Neville, it's more of an out-of-body experience about how he's different animals or whatever. But for Jackie, she gets some real revelations about, being her best self and how maybe she hasn't been giving herself enough credit. And she's been, Louise sort of helps her along to figure out that she's been blaming her mom for a lot of things in her life. And really, now's the time to focus on herself and not her issues and da-da-da-da-da. So by the end of the episode, we do actually see that she's going to give Neville a chance in the dating world. Whereas, back in the fall when we met Neville, she was very much against giving him really the time of day because she's such a screw-up that she doesn't want to mess him up or anything. And, still she's going into it with a lot of trepidation saying, look, I am, hard to deal with or whatever. But look, it's all good. I like Nat Faxon as an actor. We've talked about this, and I like this character, Neville. I am glad that they may be an item here for hopefully a little while. Good stuff, I think. Very glad to see where that goes. So I think this episode is really going to open us up to some interesting storylines. And actually, oddly, the part at the end, the little tag scene during the end credits, which was just about Becky quizzing Jackie and Harris on Jeopardy questions, which actually led to a very funny exchange because Jackie kept saying the answers and Harris didn't know who the heck the people or the thing was, so she would be like, what is Gunsmoke? But of course on Jeopardy you say what is whatever for the answer, so Becky's like, that's right, Harris. So that was a funny exchange. But the title of next week's episode is Who Are Bosses, Boats, and Eckhart Tolle? And the fact that it's phrased in a question and as a Jeopardy type answer, who are whatever, leads me to believe, I don't know, is there something with Jeopardy that we're going to see in this next episode? Are we going forward with that storyline? It seemed like just a tag scene to me, and it was funny, but then as I pulled up the episode title for tonight, I see that next week's episode has that sort of Jeopardy question air to it. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see something more with that storyline as well. But Anyway, I really like where these stories are all going. I like, the Becky and Darlene now dynamic at work, now that one's the boss and one is the union leader. So they may have some interesting head-to-heads there. And I do like, by the way, that Becky and Robin have gone from this, like, contentious, I don't like you, Becky, you're a bad worker. Oh, yeah, well, I don't like you, you're a terrible boss. That's where we sort of met Robin last fall. But now it's more of after the Union episode, where Robin revealed to Becky that she is trans, and I think they had a little better understanding. When Becky admitted she's a former addict and alcoholic. They sort of barb at each other, but it really does seem playful. The writing is very sharp here, and it's very obvious that they have come to sort of a love-hate relationship, and kind of a fun, almost working relationship, as opposed to just dreading each other's presence and hating each other. And I think that will work better, as proven by tonight's episode. So I like that part as well. As for DJ and Mary, broken record again. Look, they add nothing to the show. I don't care if they're in it or not. I loved seeing everybody else in this episode that was in it. I didn't mind that they're in it. I like when they do something, because they're obviously, in the credits every week, and they haven't been on the show for weeks. But Mary apparently lives there full time now. I was under the impression, due to the one episode where the only episode where they talked about it thus far, back in like October or November, I thought she was going to stay there after school. Mary was, and then DJ would come pick her up. I didn't know. I guess now that I think about it, maybe they did say she was going to live there during the week, and then on the weekends go and be with DJ, so that way she never has to be alone at home when he's working odd hours during the week. Maybe that is what they decided. I can't remember, because it was a couple months ago that they had the episode. But it has always led me to this question, like, okay, well, in all these episodes, I get it if you don't have DJ in them, because you could say he's at work or whatever. But if Mary is supposedly living in this house, why do we never see her? It's very bizarre. And so I was fine that we saw her, but yeah, I just either drop them completely or actually give them storylines. Just don't have them show up for one or two lines in a scene and then make them go away. But at the same time, I was fine that they weren't the focal point, because I really liked all of the scenes that we did get, and I like all of the themes of this episode, and they have nothing to do with DJ and Mary. So I'm always torn. I'm on the fence, because I would love it if they were just kicked off the show completely. They add literally nothing, but then when they are in it, I'm like, okay, it's fine that they're in it, but either give them something to do or write them out. But at the same time, don't give them really something to do, because I don't care about their characters. These are the people I care about. Darlene, Ben, Becky, Jackie, and Dan hasn't had any real centric episodes for a little while, but at least he was in several scenes of this episode, several scenes last episode. I guess last episode he was part of the B plot, getting a little bit upset that Ben was taking over the household maintenance duties or what have you. So all right, we did get some Dan there, but he's always, whether he's in it for one scene or the main A story, he always adds something. He always adds some good jokes or a nice emotional touching scene, which we got last week. And here he was in several of the scenes, and always bringing the funny. And the other thing I want to point out that I liked about this episode is that Jackie is always funny when she's under the influence of something. One of the all-time classic episodes is when they find the pot. That was back in '94 probably, when finding pot on a sitcom was a big deal. Now not so much really, but they thought it was David's pot, whatever. Turns out it was Roseanne and Dan's from back in the day. They all got high, including Jackie, and it was very, very funny. So I'm glad they sort of brought that, not storyline, because obviously it was very different, with the magic tea. She was doing it with her boyfriend and not with Dan and everything, but still very, very funny. And I really, Laurie Metcalf has been killing it for me these last like 4 or 5 episodes. I think she's really on fire, and so is the writing. I mean, the writing for Jackie, they're not making her too crazy, and at least in this episode, she has a reason to be a little crazy because she's, drinking this hallucinogenic tea. So at least it makes sense when she's saying, completely nonsensical things that are over the top. It just adds more to the humor, I thought. So overall, I thought this was a really great episode. Maybe I didn't laugh as much as some other episodes, but all these storylines, I think, are going in a great direction. We didn't see Emilio in this episode, which is another plus for me. He's another one of these characters that, I can completely take him or leave him. But the things they're starting to do with the character, I can leave rather than take. So if they're going to have him in the episodes, that's fine. But let's drop, please, the Becky and him romance storyline. I don't think it is serving anybody on the show. I really am fine that he wasn't in this episode, but I'm glad to see all the characters I love, except for Mark. I do miss Mark always. When he's not in it, it's a bummer. But everybody else, giving their all in this great episode. It was written, by the way, by Amy Fox, who I think we have seen before. I don't think this season, though, right? Yeah. We haven't had any from her this season, but I do believe we've seen her writing before. And Gail Mancuso directed, which, she is a regular director, and that's, from the early days, long before it was the Connors. So she directed this one and last week's, and I think they're both pretty solid episodes. So I will give my grade here. Oh, and look, Snowball's ready, too. He's stretching. He's like, yep, we're about done with this podcast. All right, so I'm going to give this episode an A-. And thank you for joining me. Another new episode next week. And again, we'll see if this Jeopardy theme keeps coming up because of the phrasing of the episode title. Very interesting. We'll find out what that means next week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here next time.